Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us in another of our APPI focus on ARV and actually learn by doing webinars. I always have a special topic when I do these, and today's is feedback. Is it really so important? And I bet you can all guess what my answer is going to be. Here will be our agenda. We'll first review ARV for newbies and review for you old bees. And then we'll take on this question, feedback, is it really so important? And the answer is yes. And I'm now going to take you through a new recommended approach, which fundamentally treats hits, misses, and passes during the feedback sessions differently. So we'll talk about that, and I'll be anxious actually to hear your recommendations. Turns out we will do a feedback session which had lots of misses, so we'll actually be able to try some key aspects of this approach on the coordinate 468676. And then we usually do a month-plus long ARV prediction. And that, of course, the prediction involves the remote viewing and the judging. If you're newbies, you'll understand that in a moment. However, today I actually have a must-do a doctor's appointment, so I need to leave here around 2:30, maybe a little after that, but not much. And so instead, we are going to have each of you do predictions, but it'll be within the financial group, which is our standard kind of group protocol for a prediction, which will actually be due tomorrow. So we'll get to that, and I'll take you through that for your brand new people. Okay, so let's first talk about ARV, associative remote viewing. What does that mean? Okay, now remote viewing, which I think you all have a pretty good sense of, many of you actually have been doing it, but there are some brand new people here. That's the ability to gather information from distant places, distance in space and time. We use it in terms of the what's called tasking, very simple approach, which says describe and sketch your feedback target, one that you're going to see in the future. So when you're doing your remote viewing session, you're here. Sometime in the future, you're going to be shown a target. And your job is to describe and sketch that target. Simple, right? So this is when, in fact, you do that. Now, it turns out that we've been doing this for years. The stuff goes back actually thousands of years where precognition has actually been documented. And it turns out that our consciousness has access to information, including the future. That's just the reality. Now, what happens during your feedback session, during the future? Well, the feedback session, basically, you actually do the same thing. You are pretty much describing and sketching your feedback target. But remember, now you know exactly what it is. You have the actual target in front of you, and you have your transcript. And so this is like a truth point. This is where you can see how well you did. This is where you can see, hey, maybe I need to improve. This is, in my opinion, the most important session in ARV, because you have the truth, You can work with your transcript so that your next prediction and your next one after that and your next one after that will in fact generally improve, because each time you do a feedback session, you learn a little something which you can then apply. Now, how do we make this practical? This is where the associative part comes in. In between the remote viewing session and the feedback session is an analysis judging session. Sometimes we just call it judging, sometimes we call it AJing, but here is where you actually make an action judgment choice, a decision based on what you see from the remote viewers who are really being asked a question. It's a binary ARV, so it's a yes/no question. We often frame that yes/no question into financial markets, like, will the market go up tomorrow? Okay, so that's a yes/no question. Sometimes we just say up, down. But ultimately, they're all binary. They're all yes/no questions for both sports or financial. Now, the judge has access to two possible targets. Notice there's only one over here. But where did this two come from? Well, this is the association. One of these targets is associated with yes. The other target is associated with no. The actual target shown during the feedback section will always, in capitals, in violet, will always be associated with the actual yes or no, the correct answer, what actually happens. So here, you will see what actually happens. When you give a good description of it back here, your analyst, your judge, gets to say, oh my, look how great the description was. Oh, let's see, is that with the yes target or the no target? And so the judge can make a prediction. And often there are multiple people doing that. But this basically is about your personal predictions and how well you do in getting a match with this target. So that's the basic principle right there of ARV. Two targets, one is associated with yes, the other is associated with no. That's done randomly. We choose the targets to make them as different as possible, to make the judge's job as easy as possible. Turns out, while this may be the most important session, and I believe it is, this turns out to be the most challenging, even more than the remote viewing session. And I think you'll understand that by the time we get through here. Here's a definition of precognition, which I kind of like. Knowledge of something in advance of its occurrence through means not accepted by society's paradigm of time. It's society that doesn't really want to accept that we can gather information at distances and times not normally associated with our normal senses. And this is really what ARV shows in spades. Let me give you another perspective on this, hopefully getting it to sink in for newbies and oldies. So here are the three sessions: the remote viewing session, the analysis judging session, and the feedback session, sort of in time. But precognition begins here, because here you have the truth. Here is the actual target. And what we're doing is purposeful. ARV is all about purposeful precognition. It's not like, say, a deja vu, or somebody calls you and you say, gee, I know that's Joe. God, I haven't talked to him for 20 years. And then you pick up the phone and it's Joe. That's not purposeful. Here, ARV, we're doing on purpose. The tasking as I indicated before, is describe and sketch your feedback target. But since we do this over and over, the whole intention, and I hope those of you who are here, many of you, if not all of you, will stay for the long term, because precognition really has value over the long term. You know, one prediction, great, you might get a great hit and all that, and that's a lot of fun. But, you know, how do you do when you do 25 predictions, 100 predictions? Is this something you can build as one of your normal kind of skills? Just like you learned how to walk when you were young. Now you're going to learn how to do precognition better and better. So we use 6-digit numbers here to tag the specific target. So this coordinate is associated with the final target that you see. Now it's very important to just really get this, that your feedback, that's your target, and it is a photo site. As I'll actually tell you a little later, when they first started doing this, they'd actually physically go out to sites, but they pretty quickly learned that you can use photographs, but the photograph is more than a photograph. That's why we call it a photo site, because the photo site refers to the specific location at the specific time the photo was taken. And consciousness is expected to move to that site when the photo was taken to describe and or sketch what can be readily verified or inferred from the photo. So what I care about here is what the judge can gather from the photo. So if you were to send your consciousness to a picture of a giant waterfall, gosh, you would hear sounds. Well, guess what? In remote viewing, all of your senses are activated somehow by something we call submerged consciousness, your subconscious mind. It's activated from down there. You know, lots of stuff, creativity. Much of what you do really comes from your submerged consciousness. Well, so does your precognitive information. And so what you get, and as a remote viewer, what you will write down when you do your remote viewing session are things of all your senses, but your first impression gestalts, just like when you first look at a picture, you see something, the subconscious often will give you just that kind of reaction. It'll give you the big picture stuff, the stuff that hits you in the face when you first look at a photograph, or when you first look at, you know, an actual site. You'll get visuals, you'll get dimensions. Oh my God, this is big, or hey, maybe it's small. You'll get the colors, you can get sounds, smells, tastes. All of your normal nervous system is open to being activated by your subconscious. I want to talk some more about analysis judging here in terms of getting you to understand how all of this works. This is where the judge makes a decision, and it may concern a financial market or a sports prediction where a person is in fact going to make a investment or a bet on a team. So this is an extremely important step. This is where the decision is made about what to do. So there are two possible targets. One is going to turn out to be the actual one based on what happens, based on what actually happens in terms of yes, no, up, down, over, under, whatever. But there are two there. And it's the judge's job, based on the data that the remote viewer gives him, to make a judgment of it's a good match to what we call photo site A, or is it a good match to photo site B, the two possible choices, or you might pass. But the judge makes that decision, and does a ranking, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So hopefully you'll agree with me, once you accept that information can be shared from a feedback session with a remote viewing session, can be entangled. Information, maybe you want to view it as being sent backwards somehow, or from here you're reaching forward. There's so many different ways of looking at this, and frankly, there are no good detailed scientific models for it. I think quantum mechanics comes the closest because it has something called non-locality, but it's been proven scientifically, reproduced, precognition is real, this entanglement is real, and that's what associative remote viewing is all about. Okay, now we choose these photo-site pairs to make them as different as possible in certain key elements, but there just always seem to be some overlaps, and that's what makes the judge's job challenging, unless we have these super good viewers, which I hope all of you will become, which get such a good match that the judge's job is so easy it's ridiculous. And we see that happen occasionally. Okay. And then I happen to be doing judging a fair amount, and be kind to your judge as a remote viewer, which says really always do the best possible job you can and only provide those key elements which are for the actual target, and set this in as an attention. It's the reason I'm saying it out loud to you. You know, all the information is out there for you, but, you know, report what is from the actual target and maybe unique to that target. So how to do that, we'll be talking a little bit about that, but again, it actually, believe it or not, the remote viewing part just comes naturally. You know, they give classes on how to do detailed ones, and if you're looking for a missing person, if you're in the military and trying to do a military operation of some sort, you might generate 30, 40 pages. What we do here is usually comes down to 1 or 2 pages. We just want basic information about the target so we can distinguish it from another possible photo site. And so this comes down to practice, 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 but it's like practice, 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 like a doctor. They call their work practice, or a shaman. You just do it. Joe McMonagle still does 6 of these a week. So he does take 1 day off, but he basically does one almost every day. Okay, now, one of the other things to get is that this ARV and remote viewing is very personal, because the work is internal. It's coming from your subconscious. It talks through your nervous system that's connected to your psyche, your personality. So it's all very personal. Now, what I want to show you here is how the different people who are all tasked to do the same target did. So you can see kind of different styles. You will naturally, like the very first time you do this and just quiet and watch what comes up, you'll begin a style and then it'll change and you'll develop over time. But here's a transcript. Typical transcript has always a coordinate on it. The date and stuff, which we usually put on the other side. This is analytical overlays. Now, this is important to understand because one way of looking at the basic skill is being able to distinguish between information from your subconscious, because it's got access to all this information. It's basically connected to everything. It's got access to the target. And that's the information you want to listen to. But the analytical mind, your day-to-day ego mind, the mind that gets you through your wonderful life, okay? You're living in this magnificent physical world, don't take anything away from that. But there's more. But the analytical mind, it probably doesn't even believe in precognition the way we've been raised as time goes forward. But it will want to play. And like in this example, what seemed to come up from the subconscious was a vehicle, okay, circling stuff, spiraling downward, concave. A lot of these are really good. Now, it's not a vehicle, and the mind jumped in and said it was a helicopter over water. Now, the water part was actually quite good. But this person put this over here, recognizing that at least a helicopter came in from the analytical mind. So this is one person's precognitive remote viewing of this target. And, you can see actually pretty good. But this is another person's, right? They picked up what this person didn't pick up, namely the valley here, if you will, with the two sides. Picked this up very nicely. Call it the Valley of the Rift. Why those words came into his mind, he might not even know, but he wrote it down. And that's one of the key things. You report what your subconscious provides. Don't think about it. Don't get your analytical mind involved. You just report what comes up. That's the secret to remote viewing. Okay, once you've set your strong intention to describe and set your target, let your sub give you the information. Here's another. Here, dog skit man, and you can see that by the time the raw information from the sub, which I always assume is actually, it's got access to it perfectly, it's coming up through a communication channel where it sometimes gets confused. But nevertheless, you put down what you've got. Here is a very good example of sounds. This says sound of fabric flapping in the wind. Okay? And these are just, these aren't like the word class Joe McMonagle viewers. These are people who come to us just like you have. And they'll pick up sounds, they'll pick up colors. Here's beige. I don't know if it was hot or not. You see, I can't tell. And so when you judge, you just don't give any credit or anything to that. You just ignore it. High tent is kind of interesting. Notice that's an AOL and sand, but the high part certainly fits. And as a judge, you might want to take that into account. Here's another one. Okay. And notice this person did just what she was supposed to, in that she got a visual image of something with, looks like a porcupine thing to me, but she put it down just the way she saw it, and she sketched it. She got sounds, drumming sounds, and you can see the little fibrous stuff here, which is what she was getting here. But notice, everybody's got their own style, but one of the things which I would like all of you to always do is on the top, there's sort of a line here which you put, and above you set things up. You put the coordinate, you put your name, date, and time. Then when you start, you do the coordinate again, and I can send a sheet like this out to everybody who wants it. Many times people make their own, but it has the possible things that you can do. The gestalts, shapes, textures, colors, sounds, smells, tastes, emotions, dynamics. Some people, sometimes stuff comes up, okay, but maybe they want to say, okay, I wonder, are there any textures there? So they might tap textures and wait to see what they get. So that allows them to get more specific. So people build up their own styles. Again, you just report what your sub provides. The kind of words you get during the remote viewing session are, I don't know, they're not high-level words. Like if you get Eiffel Tower, you would call that an AOL. You don't name things. You use words like you're seeing on this list, you know, tall, triangles, hard, metallic. You typically go that far. When it starts getting to where you're naming, then you make it an AOL, and it might be right, it might not be right. So that's my summary of associative remote viewing, and talking about the mindset for the remote viewing session and how it fits in with all of the ARV. Are there any questions or comments? And you can use the chat box or turn on your mic. Okay. So let's go into now feedback. Is it really so important? Guess what my answer was? Yes, it's very important for increasing your hit rates. Hit rate is a number of times your judge, and it may even be you being your own judge, made a prediction that agrees with the final target based on your transcript. And so the percentage of hits is what, of course, we're all looking for. Typically, we do predictions which are 50%, and so we're looking for hit rates which are well above 60%. 70%, I put out many years ago that I think 80% should be achievable in terms of the long term, doing it regularly. Now, why do I think it's so important, and where can we gather information about what might be important about it? And going back to the 1970s, when Stanford Research Institute, SRI, starting doing this formally with real protocols, Susan, let me reach you, real protocols, and keeping really good data, making really scientific experiments out of it. And all of this has been reproduced by other laboratories all over the world. So this approach worked quite well, as what we're doing has been validated as well. But it was called the outbounder experiment. Now, what that meant was a target was randomly chosen. In the SRI case, it was some target within a half an hour drive of SRI. So a remote viewer would then do a blind session, given a coordinate, just like our 6-digit coordinate, something like that. It might have been letters. Well, I don't know exactly what it was, but they were given a coordinate about their target. They did a session, and then after the session was done and recorded, they would go out to the physical site. And being at the physical site, how's that for real feedback? I mean, you're really making a big deal of it. You're driving out there. You're wondering how the match might be. So they took a lot of time and energy. Obviously, there were discussions comparing the target to the prediction transcript. How well does the transcript match? Oh, look over there. I got that. Oh, yeah, I heard that swing make a sound, and that was an actual case. And they would obviously be quite happy with the matches. And so that was very successful. They, I don't know, their odds in their experiments, I think, got up to well over 1 billion to 1 by chance to be reproduced. And since then, with all the other experiments, we're even past that. Okay, so notice what they were doing. I don't know what words to use, big time. They were entangling the remote viewer's transcript and the feedback target. Um, put a lot of energy into it, made it very important by driving there. Well, that's what we can do with photo sites. And that is the theme, is to really pay a lot of attention to your feedback. Now, notice we do have, and at feedback time, you as a remote viewer will know whether you had a hit, a miss, or if you pass, based on what the judge did with your transcript. So I used to have one sort of general protocol with minor modifications if it was a hit, miss, or a pass. And I've really come to believe that what I'm about to show you is much better. Because even though I used to say when you get a miss, yeah, get over being somewhat unhappy about it. Nevertheless, the whole feeling of it is different than a hit. So this is what I now believe is much, much better. And I'm actually going to see if some of you would like to participate in an experiment trying this approach with Julia Mossbridge, a well-known scientist in this area. But first, let's go over what this approach does. The hit protocol, okay? So now we're going to have three different protocols: a hit, miss, and a pass feedback protocol. So the idea here is to encourage more and more hits by celebrating. Yay! This was a hit. This was terrific. And enjoy the feeling good. This is very emotional. You want the emotionals. You want to light up your feedback session. And of course, during this time, you've got your transcript. You're noticing all the good matches you got, right? You got a hit. Your judge obviously said you had a good match, or he wouldn't have, said go with photo site A or B, whichever one he said. So you look at your transcript as well, and you just feel really good about it. Maybe the things which really match well, and you love, circle them. You're communicating not only with yourself, but you're communicating with your subconscious. So yeah, be happy, feel happy, really happy. And you're communicating this down to your subconscious, and you're saying, hey, well done. Don't you think your subconscious wants you to be happy? Of course it does. It's just passing all this information on. Your sub knows what it did, and you are totally reinforcing the whole thing. This is the way ARV is supposed to work. This is the objective. Hey, have an M&M. In the old days at Stanford Research Institute, Ingo Swann used to give out M&Ms when the remote viewers did something he really liked. Give yourself an M&M or an apple, or, anyway, feel really good about it. Reward yourself. Reward your subconscious by, attaboys. Okay, so I think you get the point. And this one is easy, right? You're going to feel happy, but just don't, I feel happy. Make a big deal out of it. And in this experiment that I do see in the chat box, somebody already has talked about that. Somebody is going to be picking this up. So all of your emotions lighting up this feedback session, looking at the target, will not only communicate back to your remote viewing session, which is really the primary purpose. This is why I sort of am focusing on this, is really for you, okay? For you to light up all the things about the transcript that were correct, because somehow your remote viewing session picked all that up. And what you're doing is now emphasizing it and really starting the whole process with your feedback session. So sort of clear, that's how all this works. but also it lights it up potentially for others to look at. Okay, so encourage more and more hits by celebrating. And then those of you who have used our protocol, we have a lot of text boxes where you get to put comments, and there's a feedback text box. And be sure to write how good it feels to get this hit. Write anything else you want about the transcripts, but about the matches. And that also, just by typing it up, it just helps emphasize that this whole prediction was a wonderful hit. And then the whole time, be really conscious, inwardly conscious of your feeling good emotion. Enjoy the whole thing, but consciously enjoy it. It's not just a quick smile, a quick laugh. Just really be into it and recognize that you are not only a thinking being, you're an emotional being, and your consciousness encompasses all that. It's what makes you holistic. Okay, now let's get to what is not quite as much fun, and we obviously try to minimize those. And what do we want for the miss feedback protocol? We want to encourage less and less misses by, and the key is learning. We are now going to put time into learning. And this session, by design, and you need to kind of sign up to do this, it's going to take more time than the hit. And in some ways, that's really positive. That also encourages you to get more hits. Here, we really want you to consciously learn something, and you've got in front of you everything you need. This is like the perfect opportunity to learn something. You've got your transcript, you've got the actual target, which was what your objective was at remote viewing time, so you can use those two to take full responsibility. Now, this is more important. This is just so important. I know that it takes a long time to really get it as deep as I mean it, because I mean full responsibility. I told you about our pairing of the targets. We do the best job we can in making them different, but they're usually different in some important aspect that we hope the remote viewer will pick up and describe that aspect of the difference. But there are always some overlaps. I hear over and over again, oh, this was a horrible set of matches. Why did you put these two together? Because such and such matches. They're the same. They happen to have a color that's the same. It's impossible to find too many pictures where all the colors are different. And we've got 800 of these out there. So what it's important to get is, why does that matter? Your job was to describe and sketch the actual target, to give enough information so the judge could distinguish that. And if you got to miss, you got to miss. Okay, you got to miss. I've talked to Joe McMonagle a lot about this, and we've had what he thinks is way too much discussion on what's called displacement. And that's when a person does a really good description of the wrong possible target, okay? So it turned out not to be one. And people are always making excuses for that. They're always blaming. Don't do any of that. You're trying to learn yourself how to get better and better. And this idea of taking full responsibility, I think, is right at the top of the mindset. Okay, But now, taking full responsibility, you ask about your RVing. Hey, how did it go? Did you stick to your protocol? Going into the RV, for the newbies, you kind of go in, and I think one of the reasons some newbies do so well is they don't have any preconceptions. They're just sort of do it and listen. Whatever comes up, they put down on the sheet of paper. After you've done a bunch of these, how you put it down on the piece of paper becomes sort of part of your protocol. What you do for what we call cool down. What do you do when you set yourself up? Do you meditate for 5 minutes? Do you meditate for 10 minutes? Do you wait until you feel you've really made contact with your deep subconscious that is about to give you information on the target? The beginning process of it is kind of a protocol. So did you stick to it? Did you feel good about it? Just note all those things. Discipline is a big part of this. And before you do your RV session, it really is important to re-emphasize your intention and expectation. Pretty soon it gets down so deep that you just sort of have to say, yeah, I'm there when I'm doing my cool down. I know what I'm intending to do. And expectation, this feeling that you're going to do well, get into that feeling. Okay, were you able to do that? How strongly did you do that? Note that. And it won't be the same every time. You know, you're a human being. But what you're doing now is noting it. And remember, you're going to be doing these over and over and over again, these predictions and feedback sessions. You begin to see patterns maybe associated with the miss. Your subconscious, as you're noticing this, is going to be giving you information. There's stuff that's going to come up from your subconscious. This feedback process is part intellectual, but it's really opening yourself to the communication channel and listening to your subconscious, because the advice is going to come from there. You know, I and others will always be giving you our best suggestions, but guess what? The best suggestions will come from you. So, did you set a strong positive intention and expectation for this to be a hit? Did you pay attention to your sub? Did you really get into the mode where you felt that the information was indeed coming from your subconscious and it wasn't just analytic or rote? You know, sometimes you just get into a place where you just say a bunch of colors because you know there got to be colors there, but it wasn't the kind of quiet word that might come up from the sub. In many ways, pictures, I always like the pictures because it's harder for that to be an analytical overlay. And yet, if something was going on during your day, which you didn't get rid of during your cool down, sometimes you'll even get pictures that have something to do with your day. And you might notice that at feedback time, you're in your feedback time here. And so you want to say, you know, did I really get a sense of that coming from my subconscious? Now, how about the analysis judging? How'd that go? You're going to look now at both photos for learning. How to do better analysis and judging. This is basically the essence of this new approach. Is in the past, I and almost everybody else would say, don't look during the feedback at both pictures. Keep your total focus on the target. Well, when you get a hit, absolutely do that. But as I'm getting into this more and more and trying to really grok what analysis judging is all about and how it fits into feedback, it really struck me, and I hope this resonates with most of you, some of you at least, that at this point, there's really very little to lose. It is a miss. You know it's a miss. And there's so much to gain in terms of the learning. There's no better time than right now to learn from your misses. That's an old hackneyed statement, but it's true. You made your prediction. It's been judged by either you or somebody else who's seen both pictures and both possible targets, both photo sites. And you have now a real opportunity to learn. So, do you think, did you feel, and this is sort of the first question that I think you should always ask, that the analysis judging was off? In other words, depending how strongly the judge, and I would say right now in APP, our organization, I'd say about 3/4 of the people are doing self-judging. So you do the remote viewing session, and you set aside all the analytical parts of you as best you can, what was going on day to day. You listen to your sub. But then if you judge it yourself, you look now yourself with mostly your intellect, 99% intellectual now, where you have your transcript and you have the two possible photos. So how was the judging? And that's what an independent judge does as well. So in either case, how did you feel about the judging? Was it way off? We use Russell Targ's 0 to 7 scale. If it was something like the lower end of that scale, we consider wagering to be 3.5. Anything below a confidence ranking of below 3.5 is a pass. Okay, so now, and we're not talking about passes, so this was 3.5 to 7 because you got a miss. Now, if it's down at the 3.5 level, at the 4 level, you might say, I think it was a little high, or no, it was okay, and I just got a miss, or however you react, but you definitely want to look at the judging. If it was at the high level, if you got a 6, you gave it a 5, a 6, or a 7, you're now getting into displacement territory. I always considered a 5.5 and above to be a displacement when I saw it. But very often when I was looking at these, they were misjudged. The judge, and this is usually when it's self-judged, I'm afraid, but not always, when it's a miss, the person just gave them too much credit because there was one part that was a good match, but there was so much others, lots of different reasons. You want to look at this and talk to and teach the judge, self or independent, how to do better. The old expression, the remote viewer is in charge, that comes actually from Ingo Swann. He taught that to the scientists. They kept wanting him to do different things. And ultimately he says, hey guys, look, I know more about this than you do. And he taught them a bunch of stuff. So very important for you at this stage now, you're the remote viewer, you're looking at the judging that was done by you or somebody else, and you want to evaluate whether or not you think it was appropriate. And it might very well be. But if it's at the very high numbers, then you want to understand what. So you got to miss. And into your intellect, which is fine. During the feedback stage, I always think you're in kind of a balanced mindset. The intellect's around, but also the subconscious is picking up and trying to learn because it's seeing you now at feedback time. And you're obviously going to have thoughts and feelings about this. And why do you think you described the one that you picked, which was the wrong one? A lot of people often say that they did this because it was more interesting to them, or it was more dynamic. They'll say it wasn't balanced in some way. Or they might even sometimes say, hey, I just really happen to like peaches, and this was a picture of peaches, and that was the one they chose, but it turned out to be the Eiffel Tower or something like that instead. And they said, oh, I was really attracted to peaches. Whatever the feelings in all those were, and your feeling about why you did it might in fact be accurate, you've got to get over that. Don't do that. You now have to strengthen your commitment to describe and sketch the feedback target. That's your job. So, hey, it's good that you understood why this happened. And in fact, there's good scientific evidence that Daryl Bem did this, Cornell, I think, but he showed that if you have two random pictures and you want to choose one that you think is going to come up, if it's unpleasant to you, you'll actually avoid it. And if it's real pleasant to you, you'll go towards it. That's really significant. And so you may have, in fact, gone to one because you liked it, but you didn't do your task. Your task was to describe and sketch the feedback target. But those experiments sort of show why you ought to make your feedback target something which you're happy is your feedback target. Even if you don't like spiders and a spider comes up, get to the point where you get to see, oh, that's part of Mother Nature and all that kind of stuff, if that turns out to be your target. And that's will help you get more hits because you won't avoid the spider if sometime the spider is supposed to be the correct target. So I hope what you're seeing here is the feeling that this is constructive work. You're learning in a positive fashion with your subconscious mind. And the thoughts and stuff that come up, are you. They're all part of you. They're coming up from your subconscious. Now, sometimes you're going to say, I don't have the slightest idea why I had this miss. You've gone, the judging was good. You're looking at the two photos. You don't even think they're that different. Even if you did, you're over that, say, by now. This is the best advice I can give you, and I think it's good advice. Get quiet and ask your subconscious. Ask your subconscious. Ask your subconscious. One of the things which is so beautiful about the expression which I love to use is that consciousness is indeed fundamental. There's something which is bigger than your normal view of yourself. I have this thing called the universe of collective consciousness, which is the place where all this information resides. It's your subconscious that has access to that. It's not your intellect. Your subconscious is connected to something much grander than the way you normally see yourself. That's an important concept. The fact that you're here, you know that. I mean, you wouldn't be exploring precognition if you had kind of the normal limited view that most people have. So you are indeed much greater even than you think you are. And it's the subconscious, and we call it your subconscious, which is somehow connected with this universe of collective conscious, something super, super big. Okay, all that is that level. So ask your sub and be open to an answer. Sometimes the best answers are surprises. And that goes even when you do remote viewing. You know, it comes out of nowhere. That's the kind of thing you like. Hey, when you remember something, when something triggers a memory, where did it come from? It seemed, you know, you didn't really kind of know it was there. You haven't thought about it for a long time. You know, what was your last really happy event? And something will come up. What'd you have for dinner last night? It'll come up. It comes from your subconscious. It comes sort of out of nowhere. So ask your sub. The very fact that you're asking will improve your relationship with your subconscious, which is what you use when you're remote viewing. You're using your communication channel, which is your relationship with your subconscious mind. So ask your sub, hey, what was going on this time? And if it's a true case of displacement, a true displacement does happen. It's rare, actually, more rare than most people think, because a lot of misses you blame on displacement. But even if it's a displacement, who knows what you might get? Maybe your sub did it on purpose, right? It gave you all this information. It had access, and it gave you all this information about the wrong potential target. And maybe it'll tell you why. Maybe it's trying to teach you something else, teach you something deeper. So use the feedback time to ask questions like that. So it's not only about improving the judging, it's about just getting deeper into the whole process and deeper into you. And then always, what key elements do you wish you had on your transcript that you didn't get? Oh my, look, you know, I got a lot of background information, but I missed the fact that there was a person there. What's going on there? And you may know, gee, people will often say, hey, I never get people, or I never get animals, or I da, 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 da. And they've got that in their mindset. Guess what? Now is the time to work on that and improve it. So do actually a new transcript, get a new piece of paper. And if it was a person, sketch the person and sketch it loosely. We're not copying it. You're doing it at the level of your remote viewing information. So you just do a rough sketch. You know, if it's a woman with hair, you might, you know, make sure you sort of get her long hair or short hair. Whatever is going on, do that. And then also do some of the other stuff. What's sort of amazing is you can capture the actual target very quickly and very easily. The key elements, which would have, if you had done these few things, you definitely would have chosen that target. Do that on a new sheet of paper. And you're now communicating with your sub, hey, thank you for what you gave me. You know, and you've already done that. You've already looked at the transcript and gone through the matches. But what you do now is focusing on the ones that they didn't give you, which would have avoided the miss. And you're training yourself to get better at that. And if the thoughts ever comes up, I can't do people, wow, know that that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you ought to work on that so that you can get better descriptions of future targets. And now is the time to do it during your feedback session. And I would say, this is really important. Note the elements in both possible targets which are on the transcript. Notice here, I want you to do those key elements which distinguish the target from the other one. So it's absolutely clear what's going on. For example, the person example, there might not have been a person in the other potential target, and so you missed the person, which would have distinguished it rather clearly. Here, I want you actually to note, because this happens too often, in fact, we even labeled it bleed through and things like that, where you happen to choose things which are in common with both targets. Just note it and get quiet for a moment and say to yourself, hey, try minimizing this sort of thing. What I really want you to do is give me things which are different. And you're doing that now, communicating this to your sub. When you do your remote viewing session, you don't go through any of this, really. It's all down there already because of the work you've done during your feedback session. Now, taking full responsibility for this really does include a kind of discipline. And you'll know when you're off being as disciplined as you should. For example, you never really want to rush sessions. You know that, right? I mean, there's just stuff that you know, and you'll know when you rushed it. Okay, just take responsibility. Hey, I rushed that one. And notice that, because if you rush a lot of them, and a lot of them are misses when they're being rushed, guess what? Stop. And know that with that kind of self-discipline, with all the things that you're learning and learning from your subconscious, you in fact are going to get better and better. You're going to get this positive attitude. And don't you believe that that'll help you as opposed to a negative attitude? I think almost all of us do. And so what you're learning with all of this is to watch your own consciousness, your own internal workings, and then improve them based on what improving means to you. And know that you're going to get there. Using these ideas, you'll come up with ideas that are probably better than any that I can put out there because it's personal to you. But deep down, know that you'll get there. And there is as you define it, okay? And the there may change. And the there will, at least I've experienced, and a lot of other people have experienced, will be a lot more than just the hit rate. The hit rate is an analytical measure. We want it to be as high as possible. You'll want it to be as high as possible. And you're doing training to getting there. But what you're learning is all about this deep you, about connecting up with your subconscious to get as deep as you can into this universe of collective consciousness, into the all that is, into the deepest, frankly, spiritual reality that you can imagine. Okay, let's see if we can summarize the MISS protocol now. As you can tell, I think it's the most important one in terms of new stuff I'm putting out and why I separated the three, the hit, miss, and pass protocols. You're looking at the two possible targets and your transcript now. And notice it's only during the MISS protocol that you do look at the two possible targets in terms of feedback. You might do that at judgment of feedback. You take full responsibility for both the remote viewing and the judging sessions, and then you learn something. I've given you different ways that you can do that, mostly following your own consciousness, maybe opening up dialogues with it, that sort of thing. And ask your sub, what do you suggest I do to improve my long-term hit rate? And then listen. So that's an example. You'll have other, maybe more specific questions, but that's a general approach. And here's a quote. Your opinion of yourself is your most important viewpoint. You are infinitely greater than you think you are. And as you're watching yourself, things will come up which contradict that. Remind yourself you are infinitely greater than you think you are. Why blame? Why come up for reasons for misses as opposed to taking the attitude and sort of leaving it there, as opposed to taking the attitude, reasons, oh, okay, that might be true, but I know I'm great enough that I can now get over it and then get over it, okay? I can learn to describe people. And then Joe McMonagle, perhaps the best public remote viewer in the world, basically, bottom line, said it's all psychological. And I love thinking about that way because it's just another way of saying not only the psyche, but your whole personality. It's you. It's the non-physical part of you that is involved with all of this. And so that's what you're working. Hey, that's kind of cool. What you're working on is yourself with a deeper part of yourself. Cool. And in spite of any evidence to the contrary, and that's when you get a miss, for example, develop new actions to support knowing that you will achieve, say, a steady 70% to 80% hit rate. Now, I just put out that number. A lot of you might really want to start. I'd be happy with the 60% hit rate. In fact, for brand new newbies, I suggest that. That's good. If it's a 50-50 probability and you can get 55, 60%, that's terrific. And then you can work on going higher. But I just wanted to put that number out there really for the more experienced viewers. This is the learning that the kind of stuff I'm approaching here, learning from yourself, I believe will get you into the 70% to 80% plus rate. None of us know how high this can go for the longest term reliably, but we're the people who are going to find out. I mean, we're right at the cutting edge of this. And while all this is going on, the real benefit to all this is you're learning more and more about the you, the deep you. Okay, haven't done the pass. Now, any questions on that before I go into the pass? Now, let's see if I should read the comments. Okay, doing the experiment, yeah. I mean, you will also send out incorrect image. Well, Nikhil, and your email has Nikki, I've noticed, so let me call you Nikki. Does it mean you will also send out incorrect image again? In some ways, that's why I've taken so long to get to this point. I'd have to say there is a little bit of that. And, everything is connected. So we put a little energy into that. If you're going to suggest that that caused the miss, I would say no, because with all the energy you're putting into learning, it should far overshadow any of that effect. Okay, so, I can't say it's a zero effect, but I don't think it'll be a strong effect. And I think you, when you're doing all of this, have to see it that way. Just sort of ignore that. Just don't give it any energy. Just stay on the learning from seeing it. And then Bill said, so if you make your lazy sub do lots of extra work when you miss, it's more likely to give hit data for future target. Yes, that was sort of part of it, Bill. This is an encouragement to get through the learning, jump through a few grades and get through the learning as quickly as you can. But I don't think, in fact, maybe in some strange way, the reason 100% is not possible for the long term, say 100 predictions or something like that, that's long enough. Maybe someday somebody will get 100 correct, and they probably will, but you know what I'm saying. Unusual, 1,000, there's a massive uncertainty principle, global uncertainty principle, analogous to the quantum mechanics uncertainty principle. And built into that, I think, is there's always more to learn. Even the UCC in some fashion is very creative. This is all such a creative process. And if you really got to 100%, you're sort of done. Everything is different. There's no more to learn. And I don't think the UCC would allow that. But getting through it so that you have 80%, 90% hits, that would certainly make the learning that you do during the misses actually more interesting at that point. Okay, Jack, I guess I didn't make myself clear. I have changed the system. So during misses, you do look at both pictures. Period. In other words, that is what I'm suggesting. It's only during independent judging. If a viewer chooses to use independent judging, then the viewer will not see both pictures up until he got a miss at feedback time. He or she got a miss at feedback time. So that is the big change. So I want to make sure. Okay, very good, Jack. Yes, so during the miss feedback protocol, you do look at both for the learning that can come from it. Marty, is it okay to use pendulum during judging? Yes. I'll tell you something else. It's okay to use a pendulum. The system, the Wii system, will allow you to use a pendulum during your remote viewing. You could simply ask, is it going to be photosite A? Yes or no? And then you can go to the judging screen, and depending on how strong you felt about it, you can judge it. So you can use this system with the pendulum. I've had people do it. None of them have stayed long enough, to say, hey, I've done it. I've gotten up to 60 or 70%. But if anybody wants to do that, do it. In all the text boxes that you have options to write in, say I used a pendulum, because you'll get all your stats. So you'll be able to see how well the pendulum works for you. Well, you see, and that's right, Nikki. That's why I'm changing and recommending that you go back. Oh, you know what I did not tell you, and I think I'll show it later, but let me tell you about it now, is the way you see both. When you go to the feedback session, all you will see is the correct target. Okay, so that's the way the nominal feedback works, and that'll be it for the hits and the passes. However, when you get a miss, you then go back into your tasking statement where you originally got your coordinate, and then you hit the submit button, and then you upload. You can upload a dummy page again, or you upload your transcript again, which is what you did if you self-judged, or if you're independent judging, your independent judge did it, but now you would do it, and up would pop both pictures. So that's how you get both pictures, by going back to the original tasking. Yes, exactly. And thank you for asking, all of you for asking those questions. Okay, what do you do with pass? Hey, we're still always learning. That's what feedback's all about. But with the passes, I simply recommend, first of all, just know there's nothing wrong with passes. The best viewers in the world do not get hits all the time. Joe McMonagle, sometime, well, actually, I don't know that about Joe, if he would ever say I won't do a session, but he certainly doesn't always get hits. But here we can use passes to learn more about how to get more hits. And it's an opportunity to learn, just as before. You still take full responsibility for the pass. You ask yourself about the RVing and the AJing. How did they go? And now just look at the actual target and your transcript. I don't see any good reason to bring up the other one. Again, this also kind of isolates the MIST protocol, so it'll be obvious to your subconscious and to you that you're in the middle of a MIST protocol, as opposed to a hit or a pass. And I want to distinguish the pass from the miss. And then when you look at your target, again, you probably got some stuff which is right. Circle that, feel good about that. But then definitely go ahead and add stuff on another sheet of paper. Do the session that you wish you had done. Okay, so what do you wish your sub had communicated on your transcript? So you do that intending to communicate with your sub. And this intending, you don't do it kind of mechanically. You really, you get a sense when you're deeper. During all of these are sessions. You should do a cool down, even if it's just a brief one, to know I'm now in touch now with my subconscious. And some of you may want to do one that's as strong as that you do through remote viewing. Some don't. It's going to be interesting as this goes on to see if we can distinguish those sorts of things. But all of this is so individual. But definitely on a new sheet of paper, do the session you wish you had done. And again, it's a brief kind of session. You just put the essence of what would describe the target you're looking at, the actual target that you're looking at. Now let me tell you about the experiment. Okay, Julia Mossbridge, she, gosh, I should know this. I don't know if she's a consultant to IONS, where Dean Radin is, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, the biggest consciousness organization out there. And Dean is a chief scientist. She works with Dean, very well-known scientist. She's writing a book now on precognition in your life. The Premonition Code is the name of it. It happens to be coming out just when we're having and here's a plug, so forgive me, but actually I think most of you would really enjoy it. We are doing a workshop conference with Julia, Dean Radin, and myself up at the IONS facility in Petaluma, which is north of San Francisco, in October. and her book is coming out right before that, and she's going to be there and signing her book. She's giving Dean, Julia, and I are all giving presentations on the 3.5 days. So I hope you join us. All the information is on our website. Okay, so what she's going to do is actually tap into the emotions of viewers while they're doing their feedback session. So what we believe she'll get is more information about the hits, just because we've done everything we know to tell you to light it up, if you will, and so she can find it again, if you will. The language that we have to use isn't really the way it works exactly, but it gives you the ideas. And so she will be tapping into the emotions of the viewers that want to participate in this. Now, we recognize that there are always ethical issues here when one person is probing or reading, which is what I've called it here, another person's mind. And so we really are asking for volunteers who will agree to do this and actually will really get into being really, really happy with their hits and go through the protocol that we've had here so you can distinguish that. So hopefully she can distinguish all of that. And if you want to be part of this experiment, so she will be reading, probing, at least and only during your feedback session. Send to me an email, which is basically saying, yeah, it's okay to do this. And I wrote this. I want to be part of the reading emotions experiment. I understand that Julia will be tapping into my emotional state during my feedback sessions. I give her permission to do that. So I saw at least some of you said you'd like to participate in this. Send me an email at that email address. In fact, let me put it in the chat box so you can copy it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So simple as that. Now, Julia wanted me to share the following. So these are actually from her words. And please let them, that's you, know that every time I tap into someone's emotional state, I also leave them consciously, leaving all their energy behind and sending them a little healing, not from my energy, but from their own. So she's big into that. And then I would suggest asking those who agree to do this that when they get a hit, when they're on the win side, they get a hit, they say, "Hi, Julia, I got a hit." Kind of love that. So, so that's it. So the only people that will be in these experiments are those who send me their email address. Send me to my email a statement like the one that's up here. Okay, so any questions on all of that? Any of that? And we'll now go into, yeah, she's a scientist there, exactly. I don't know if she's a consulting or full-time. I think she's a consulting because she has her own company. Okay, let's go forward because I just have a little over an hour. So we're going to now actually do feedback, and we can talk about all the stuff that we've been doing, including, as it turns out, by coincidence, the misses, because we have misses here. So the first thing, just to help get us back into the context here, is to recognize that you, and this I psi is sort of the deeper you, the psychic you, the you that knows that psi is a normal capability. It's that you that creates your precognition and retrocausality. You hear that word a lot. And they're really almost interchangeable, because there's like a place outside of time and space where all of this is going on. Sometimes people say multi-dimensions, or everybody uses different language. But basically, when you're remote viewing and looking at it from linear time, you're looking towards the future. So you're pre-knowing, pre-cogniting. So you're pre-knowing. On the other hand, when you're at your feedback session, you're retro-causing information on your transcript to happen. So again, that's a summary of what ARV is all about. And it's just a matter of precognition and retrocausality in terms of the whole prediction cycle. So the feedback session has that retrocausal effect. And feel this truth, okay? And feel this truth as we're about to go into our feedback sessions here, and know that you can get better and better with practice, 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 practice. So the coordinate that we're doing is 468676. This comes from a prediction we did over a month ago. And the prediction was, will the Dow Jones Industrial Average close over 26,000 on July 13th? So we probably did this around June 13th. And the prediction was yes, but the outcome was no. Now remember, this is a group prediction. So we had about, I don't know, 7 or 8 people do that prediction. And it turned out, well, here they are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We had 10 people do the prediction. They predicted, and I, of course, as a group manager, these are the confidence rankings. Remember, I told you between 0 and 7, 3.5 being the separator between wagerable and non-wagerable. We had no wagerables for CRB. Here is a 3.5, but the higher confidence ranking of 5 was here. So this prediction was for photosite A. So virtually all of these were either passes or for photosite A. So I did a group prediction for photosite A, which was a yes. That ended off being a miss. So the actual coordinate was photosite B. So this gives us an opportunity to look at some of these, and hopefully the people are here, and maybe we can go through and do some missed feedback protocol work. So for the newbies, how in fact does our approach work so you can make these predictions? It's totally online. It really is user-friendly. After you go through it once or twice, you just sort of take that part for granted, and then you get to work on your remote viewing and feedback. The communications all begin with email, and everything is saved on the app server so that you have access to it. So you'll know what your hit rate history is. You'll have all your comments. Just for saving time, this is a typical, and this is the one here, an email that I sent out for the feedback. And so this is an example. Notice it has the event, will the Dow Jones be over 2,600? And then notice in this case, the winning side was the no side. And it's important to do a good feedback session, whether you have personal hit miss. So I always add a comment. here. And then if you were at your email, you would click here, and up would come this. You first have to put in your personal email address because often it's a different picture for different people. But after you put in your email address, you click, you would get this. So this was the feedback. This is the feedback target for 468676. Now, those of you who did this, you might say it out loud. I had you say it out loud when you do a prediction because it acts like another beacon or anchor to get you to your feedback session. So 468676. And it's not like you have to memorize it. It's the vibrations within you that the subconscious picks up and I think assists it in finding this feedback. But here there are plenty, and here's an example of where you would put in text. Okay. Now, we're going to now use the new protocol for personal misses. And so, because of that, and only because of that, I went back into the tasking, put in what I call a dummy, the equivalent of transcript, because I didn't do this. So I just put in a dummy transcript so I could get here. And this now, you're seeing what was photosite A, which randomly, photosite A and B are randomly associated with yes or no. This might have been yes, and this might have been no. It's all random. The computer does that, and nobody knows until far down in the system. And so here we're seeing this, and I don't know if you saw this come across, but this was what I had put in the original text box. And CRs, that's the confidence rankings for photosite A, makes this prediction very clear. There weren't any from photosite B. However, we were wrong. This is photosite B. So for hits, you would never see this, but I'm putting this on the page because now we're doing learning. So Anita, are you here? I don't see Anita here. Okay, so I'll try. See, one of the differences, Anita would have remembered what she did here. Also, sometimes handwriting and things like that. For somebody else to do the feedback, I mean, it just emphasizes how personal it is. But okay, let me look at this and tell you stuff that I see. First of all, you can see she gave A, you may or may not be able to see it, but she gave A a 5 and B a 3.5. So she was the one, so she thought the 5 was, a 5 is very good. And in fact, before I go on, I put this one next because I knew I was going to have to describe this to you. Let's now talk about the 0 to 7 confidence ranking. 0, 1, and 2, no correspondence, which actually turns out to be difficult, but it happens. Little corresponding, and then a 2. A 2 is some correct elements, but not sufficient to suggest results beyond chance. So, you might have gotten a color, you might got a shape, but there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't match. After you do a few of these, you get the feeling this was not a psychic connection. I know I can do better than that. So 2 would be a chance. 3 now is getting to the point where you say a mixture of correct and incorrect elements. Yes, so you got both, but enough of the correct elements that the viewer has made psychic contact with the target. So if you give yourself a 3, you're going to say, yep, I think I made psychic contact with the target, but it's kind of on the border. A 4 gets the good correspondence with several matchable elements intermixed with some incorrect information. So now you're stronger. You got several matchable elements intermixed with some incorrect information. Some to me implies less than half, at least. Okay? So you still have incorrect information for sure, but you got enough matchable elements that you're feeling pretty good about this. Very good about it. 4 is good. We used to only allow integers. This was many, many years ago. But people were always having a hard time. And in fact, we did a study that the same judges on the same target and transcript, different judges on the same target and transcript, can be as far apart as 1. Because there's judgments in here. This is called judging. And you're using Russell Targ's system here, but it's a judgment. So what we decided to do is you can put in between numbers, but if you put a 3.5, you're saying you'd be willing to put a few bucks on it. So that's the lowest. Now look at a 5. A 5, Russ added unambiguous, unique, matchable elements. Good correspondence with unambiguous, unique. Those are pretty high-level words. Matchable elements, but some incorrect information. This fits in perfectly with the approach we're taking now with misses. If you gave yourself a 5, and we're about to go back now and look and to see if Anita was up to this level. And again, it's a judgment. She might very well have said this and this are unambiguous and unique. But to give it a 5, you need to say that. And I'm even going a little further. Remember, it's the judge that gives this ranking. It's the judge now. The judge always sees both. Otherwise, he won't know which one's better than the other. I'm about to suggest to all judges that the unambiguous unique has to be compared to the other photo. So it isn't unambiguous unique in the general world. Let's just consider it to be unambiguous unique compared to the other picture. Okay, so that's a high level, and if it's in both pictures, for example, something that you said is unambiguous and unique, that wouldn't work because it's not unique. So that's a 5. A 6 and 7 get into this analytical overlay. So just get that a 5 is really very good. Just as good, actually, in my opinion, as a 6 or 7. It just happens, and so it's different, that your analytical information, the stuff you put at the AOL level, where you might have named it. Remember, we said don't name things, but the intellect wants to name. And if that naming was correct, which does happen, and you had essentially no incorrect information, you get a 7. And that happens. I've seen that. That's rare, but it happens. And I'm hoping as all of us get better and better in this, we'll see more 7s. And the same for 6s. 6s, you just use the word naming the function, okay? And relatively little incorrect information. But if you name the function or name the target, and you're somewhere between relative or no incorrect information, then you give yourself 6 or a 7 or 6.5, something like that. So that's the system of judging. So now let's go back here, and she gave herself a 5 on A, this one. So one of the things that she would do is look at this and say, do I really believe this should be a 5? So let me review my judging. And I'm looking at it here. So first of all, gestalts are very important. In fact, Joe McMonagle, and I've taken his system and modified it somewhat, But his system wants the first impression gestalts to be 50% of the ranking. So let's look at gestalts. Here certainly got a building kind of like structure. It's not really triangular, but I would say that's close enough. If she were to say, I see this as a gestalt, let's see if she said structure anywhere. And it isn't a yes or no. You know, if all I had were these two, I might give it a half of a total gestalt. The way the Joe system works is he goes from 0 to 1 on gestalts and then 0 to 1 on the percent of matches. So I would give this maybe as much as a half in terms of gestalt-like. You know, it's structure-like. I'd feel happier with the half if I saw anything that said structure. I don't know if you can read any of that. I don't see structure. Okay, so the most I would give for that in terms of gestalt would be a half. And now let's look at the percentages of matches. Brown, yeah. White, yeah. Nice, a sheep. See, I don't know what she meant for that. That may mean something for her, but I don't know why that's an A. Like gravel, open terrain. See, even that's marginal. We don't see terrain. I don't know that there aren't a million buildings around here. So I would disagree with those A's. Cloudy, but you can see what I'm doing. Fluffy, cloudy. Well, I guess there are clouds there. Furry, woody. I don't see wood. So she may have been leaning, again, if she were here, she might say something different, or she might agree with me. These are not strong matches. The other thing which I do say when we do matches, and I didn't see any here, are little a's. You can have something which is marginal. So maybe in her mind, the cloud, I certainly don't see fluffiness here. You know, we all know what fluffy clouds look like, but maybe she should have made that a small a. And then when I count up points versus the total number of possible elements, I would give for Brown a full 1, but for Fluffy a half. I've talked about this in more detail in some other webinars, but in terms of looking at the judging now, once you've done the judging, I actually think her 5 is too high. So while she may say, I displaced, I would say, no, you misjudged this, period. What else did she do for A's? Rural. So she gave an A to rural. Well, these are in her AOLs. Okay, the point I'm making to you, and I hope you get, is that this is the approach you would take, and you would say, oh, okay, maybe this time I overjudged. I hope she would come to that conclusion, and that'll help her judge the next one. Or the judge would be looking at this, and the judge would say, after looking at this, you know what, I really think I misjudged this. And we get that a lot in sessions just like this with people not even using this protocol, but of course we look at them and they say, oh, I really did, I misjudged that. Okay, let's go to another one. So here's another example. Okay, good, Jack. You're here. So this was the one you did a month ago, right? Same Jack. Perfect. Okay, good. Let's put on your mic and let's talk about this. You gave yourself a 4. And
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. So let's see if you still believe this should be a 4. First, let's ask the question about the gestalt. Do you think, how much of this gestalt did you capture?
I guess I'm a little unclear on how you determine that. Are you saying just look at everything on the page and?
I am, it has uncertainty in it. It's a judgment. And I'll give you an example. Here, this is definitely structure-like.
Right, that definitely kind of looks like it.
And it's got squares, segmented squares in it,
Right.
which fit here. So I would say this captures the gestalt pretty well. I would say, let's look at some more of your words. Did you said, well, look here, you said man-made structure hard. So I would actually give you a 1 for the gestalt. You captured this gestalt.
And what was the scale of that gestalt?
Say that again?
What was the scale for the gestalt?
The way Joe does it, 0 to 1.
0 to 1.
I would say you captured the gestalt here. Flat, distant, sunny, grainy, rugged, natural, interface. Okay, you know, you got some misses on the gestalt here, so maybe you give yourself a 0.9, but again, that'll be a judgment. I'd give you basically a 1. You got the gestalt. Now, also looking at this, and this is the way my mind works, and I don't know how you're going to go through it when you do this on your own, but I look at this, and I say you got the gestalt of B as well.
Yeah, I see that now.
And it's also a structure.
Right.
It's also man-made. And notice you did not mark that here. You did mark it here and here. And that's,
so you'd consider the coins a structure? I guess I was thinking buildings.
Okay, and then you were right to not do it. You, and this is so important, don't let anybody else tell you how to do it. All they can do is say the way they would do it. And I was sort of even on the margin when I said it, but I did say it, so part of me thinks this is a kind of structure, a small structure, but that doesn't matter. What matters is what that word meant to you and means to you. So you did this just right. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
You don't change anything. You just have to become totally internally consistent with your subconscious. I just cannot overemphasize that. There isn't any right or wrong way to do this. You are learning how to do it for you. You see, you know, what I'm giving you are these basic guidelines. And should this be 0.9 or 1 in terms of structure? Ultimately, it's going to be you who are going to be doing this for you. So, yes, not putting B there was perfect for you because that's the meaning of structure for you, and that's all that matters. But often, when you go through this, you will find stuff that you did miss. Trust me. You know, it's just sort of the way it is, unless I've emphasized that enough since, you know, you've been to more than one of these, that you take the time to get it to be just the way you want it to be. And when you come back, you won't say, I missed anything. Okay, so now let's look at your ratio. So you gave it a 0.54, which is over half, just barely. Okay, so that's okay. And let's see if I agree, though, with all of your A's. See, now you would go back. See, since you got a miss, you want to say, well, did I... Oh, do you really think this is natural? Or, oh, you took the sky as natural?
Yeah, I must have done that.
Okay, now that you're looking at, would you do it again?
Well, no, probably not, since the main thing is a man-made.
Right, exactly. So you've learned something. Now, what your logic was there was, well, you saw a little natural over there, but that's not your job. Your job as the remote viewer was to get those dominant things, that are easy. Well, yeah, it's there. At best, if that was your reasoning, you would give it a small A.
Okay.
Okay, because sometimes it might be bigger, but you've learned, and it was clear when you said natural, you were meaning something like a shoreline,
Right, right.
sand dune, and then when you come back here and you judge, you probably shouldn't have done anything because that is not.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, perfect. You see, guess what? You're learning during your feedback session. Okay, and so let you look at every single one of them. The man-made was great. A was great. Hard, yeah, terrific. Smooth. Well, I would give that a small A, but again, if you consider that somehow smooth, that's fine. And maybe you didn't know about the small A. Certainly rough. And sometimes there are some parts that are smooth and some parts that are rough, but I don't see anything smooth. Oh, the windows, maybe? Is that what you were thinking?
Well, yeah, I just figured in all of that, there must be some stuff that's smooth and some rough.
Okay. I think the attitude, though, ought to be, is that what a remote viewer would sense or feel? In other words, from this target, and maybe the answer is yes. Okay. You're learning just by forcing yourself to go over this. Yeah, white, tan is good. Good for A. Smooth. Again, you gave it a full smooth twice.
That was on B though.
Yeah, that was. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That was B. That's right. Yeah, but yeah, not A. Right. Okay. Focused area. White tan. Focused area meant that the picture was like in a focused area. Okay. Large. And what was this to you, the sketch?
Well, that looked kind of like some of the lines, horizontal lines and stuff on the columns maybe, or
Okay. Mm-hmm.
as well as this second one there.
Okay. Yeah, and they've got curvature. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so I would say I don't have any problem with the 4. And I think you could, during the judging session, come to that conclusion. Okay, so now let's look at B. And one of the reasons you want to look at B is, first of all, it was the actual target.
Right.
And secondly, it might get up if you didn't do it quite right to where you honestly say, if I were to judge it again, not knowing the truth, you have to put yourself back into judging mode because you're trying to learn about the judging mode. Would this also get up to a 4, in which case it would be a pass, or even a 3.5, which is close enough that a lot of people actually wouldn't wager on it if they're that close. So let's look at it. First of all, I would say you got the gestalt, right?
Yes.
So, in fact, I'd say you got the gestalt good enough that I'd probably give it a 1 as well. Well, maybe not quite as high, being fair, because gestalts also tend to come, well, though it was man-made, it's a structure, it's hard. This one, again, you could easily see how that captured it.
Yes.
Interesting. And I do love, for everybody else watching this, that you did the AOLs. That was really good. Truck came in and you knew it was an AOL. That's great. Okay, but let's see if there are any other things here that you didn't count that might make it go higher. Well, yeah, I really don't. Now, lines inside, mostly curves. Now, these curves could easily be here, but,
Right.
yeah, the wings. But, I don't think that's going to change this very much. So I would say you're in the category of, okay, my judging was pretty good, except I did miss this as being a major gestaltish kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so maybe I would have made this go up to a 2, maybe a 3, I mean. But you didn't miss anything major at all. So then what do? You probably say to your sub, you do always get quiet. I would do another session. What would you want to add for here? If you were on another sheet of paper, in fact, do it right now, and then you can tell it to us. Do it right now.
Oh, no. Do it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do this
You have
same
a sheet
session.
of paper and pencil?
Yes.
I want you in less than 30 seconds, right now, you don't have to put your name on the paper or anything, right now, draw what you wish you had done during your remote viewing session.
Okay.
And you could add a word or two, low-level words, but mostly draw. You're done.
Okay. Well,
Let's
I got
go
a
ahead.
circle with a stick figure in it, basically, and the word being next to it.
Okay, so you focused on the first one. Now you see what I would have done is I would have drawn 3 circles.
Ah,
But that's me.
right.
But you did what was just right. Though I think you would have gone on to draw the other 2 circles
Well,
eventually.
yes, I would have.
Okay, but and that's so you would have taken maybe 2 minutes to get that far. I stopped you because I wanted you to get the first impression gestalt, which in your case, and that is pretty, drawing to the eye and the mind. Um, okay, but by doing that, you're now telling your sub, and you add those 2 circles. You can even do that now to your piece of paper. You're right now telling your sub, and I would get a little quiet. That's a way of drawing your sub's attention. It's so subtle. I think it tends to listen to the quiet stuff. That I'd like Gestalt-like things. Thank you for giving me what you did. You gave me a circle here, even multiple circles. And I think we can communicate well enough that you might give me 3 circles next time something similar to this comes up. And thank your sub for all that it does do. Send it some love. And then on the bottom of the new sheet, put end of session or end. I recommend doing that on the remote viewing session as well. And you're done.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And thank you. And again, remember, creativity comes from the sub as well. And you will, in your own fashion, come up with the way that works for you. Okay, so here's another one. Right. This one, I had brought these up and didn't have time to look at them in any detail, but I remember this one. Look at all the A's. It didn't ever get to a confidence ranking, but they have 13 A's and 2 B's. So clearly it would have been an A prediction, which is another miss. And let's see what they did. Or is this person here? I can't. Monica. Is that a Monica? Okay. But you look here, and let's look at these A's. Yeah, brown. Okay, white and beige. Okay, that's good. Yellow. I don't think she gave. I'm not sure if that's an A. That might be a shape, which gave it a B. An A. I guess she saw that structure like. Oh yeah, let's do the Gestalt. So this is certainly, again, structure like. Structure like and windows. Here's an A pointed. Someone else got that too. So these A's all look okay. Tunnel, yeah, maybe I'd give that a small A, but I could see where she might have gotten that. Entrance, certainly. So she had a question mark, but she was sensing that, and that's over in the AOL column. Train tunnel, give it an A. Wider opening, an A. Something trying to go through. Okay. I certainly wouldn't give that an A. There's nothing moving. There's no motion. And she got movement and motion here, which if anything goes along with the Eagles. And she didn't mark that as a B. Man-made, she gave that both an A and a B. Okay, so there are a few A's I would take away. And so I don't quite know what score she would get. I'd probably give this a 3, not a 3.5. She didn't give it any score. So if she were here, we would talk about the scoring. I don't know what some of you think. The circles here, I suppose they could be this part of the arch or the circles. Yeah, to me, this looks like a 3. I don't think I would bet money on it, not even a little. Because, you know, yeah, they're gestalts, but at best I give this a half again. It didn't say structure. Okay, oops, I think I went the wrong way. Is this our last one? No, I got one past there. Okay, this is, and I'd actually like this one. Have no idea what I'm doing and don't know how to score. So, and this gets to, do you give it a 3, a 4, a 5? What do you do? But she marked her A's and she marked her little A's. And again, I think she was on that list I showed you, so I probably did work her through, but I don't remember what we gave her. But there are some B's here as well. Let's first look at this skull. Well, look at her. She got the gestalt of a building very nicely. She got the windows, so she did well with the gestalts. Let's see if her words, man-made. Now, she didn't mark this man-made with a B, so that would be another B. Walk. What we see happen a lot is a person will at the beginning say get a bunch of A's, and then they say, oh, it must be A, and they don't quite look at the B's the same way. But she did looking down. Okay, that was good. That was the eagle. Northwest, interesting. She gave that, maybe it should be a little B, but it looks like she gave it a B. Traffic and noise. Now, we can't tell that. But she said, oh, well, it probably is busy near there. For all I know, this is on some big property, and it could actually be quiet. So it's what can be readily inferred from the picture. And so that was her judgment. I might disagree. Dark. Have no idea. So whether or not this comes down to, I think she drew this circle, afterwards. So I don't think she got any gestalt on this one. But she got a good gestalt on this one. Fair number of A's, but a fair number of stuff that doesn't match. And that's where this ratio comes in. Again, I think this might be a 3.5 or a 3. Leaning definitely in this direction, though. So she would just acknowledge that, go to a new sheet of paper, and draw whatever she draws. If I were to do this quickly, again, I would do the 3 circles, and I would put a sketch figure of a person in here. Though that's me. Some people would say, since it isn't a real person, they wouldn't mark it as that. In fact, and that's a problem with stuff like this for some people. And I might actually try to say alive. But again, that's me. When I see something like that clearly identified, I consider it to be what it is, a picture of. So my consciousness, just like it took this whole picture to get here, would take that and would go to an eagle. In fact, and now that I say that, well, this is traffic noise. I actually, as I said that, I heard an eagle squelch. One more, and this is a pass. So I wanted to show one pass. What do you do with the pass? Well, did I miss anything on judging? Because I'm trying to learn, see if I can learn about judging, because this is an opportunity to do that. She passed because she gave them small numbers, which meant probably no gestalt. And I don't see any gestalts. And a low fraction of matches. She got 3 Bs. She got round, which could almost be a gestalt, but, well, which it is a gestalt, but she doesn't have any. Oh, well, she got metallic. Actually, she got more on B. She got 4 Bs curved. Interesting. She got 4 Bs and 2 As. But because she got so many non-matches, her ratio there would be low. But I think she got the Bs on the gestalts. If she had used the gestalt approach, I think she might have gotten up to a 3 or something, a 2.5 on the B. Okay, she then, Lila is not here. Lila happens to be at a meeting up at IONS, the Parapsychology Association. Anyway, she would then, on a sheet of paper, do a quick few-minute sketch of that. And now, a change of pace. I had wanted to do a month or more, but it turns out I have this appointment, and we only have a little over 15 minutes. So what I'm recommending each of you do, and I hope you're going to want to be part of this experiment. Okay, so I'm just re-putting in the things we said about the experiment. But the way I want to proceed is with our standard financial group, which has a prediction set for tomorrow. Some of you may be in that group. Okay, so I hope some of you have sent me emails on that. And this then is the email which went out to all the members of the financial group. I would like you to consider yourself a temporary member of the financial group, because when you click on that link, all you have to do, and I'm going to put this in there. Oops, oh, Bill, wait, let me send this to everyone. Okay, so I've sent that to everyone now. This will come up. Put in your email address into both of those, and I'll be back. I need to take a little break here. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Now, hopefully you have on your individual screens, there's nothing to see in terms of presentation anymore. You should have on your individual screen what I have here. And okay, so you're in the group. Okay. Um, okay, very good. So the two of you that are in the group, after this, I just have a couple of closing statements that you probably heard already, but you're welcome to hang around or not. But the others, do you have this in front of you? And I hope you two, well, you'll have to decide to join the experiment or not, but I'll know whether you have or not, and she'll be the only one. Very good. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so Donna, are you in this group, Donna? And separate from the experiment. Okay, so if you would like, I don't know if you're the same Donna that you've been around for a while. Are you Z Donna, Donna? Oh, okay, but you're not in that group yet. Okay, I can probably put you in the group. Lori, you do not want to participate. Well, that's fine. Then just don't send an email, but you still could do this prediction if you would like. You don't have to be in the experiment to do this prediction. And I will send you the feedback link tomorrow. The nice thing about, so you can either do it or not do it. Now, okay. Okay. You don't even have to join, Lori. All you have to do right now is go to this page and put in your name, your email address twice. Okay, so I will show an example for all of you who are either newbies. First of all, are you all on this page? Do you have this page? If you don't, if you had trouble getting to this page, let me know in the chat box or turn on your mic or something. Okay, so good. So you all have this page.
I didn't get the link, Marty. This is Donna.
Oh, okay. Let me put it in again. It's in the chat box.
The link is in the chat box?
Wait, yeah. Here.
Oh, okay.
You should have it right now. So just click on that and it should pop up. Okay, Lori, go ahead and do it. Let me make sure both of you have that. Okay.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good. And Lori, I'm assuming you have it as well. And then you put in your email address twice. A lot of people have had, they accidentally mistype their email address and then they don't get the feedback because it's not the same. Okay, so once you've done that, make sure you click financial group. So I think it automatically defaulted to that based on the link. And then you click here. And here is where, after you do your transcript, and I'm not going to be able to stay here long enough for this, you would upload it right there. How many of you are brand new? I know Donna and Lori have already done this. Nikki, you've done it. Some of the names are new. Okay, Raymond, you're new. Okay, Raymond, you'll take as much time as you need to do your session, do you have this page up? And notice you will have a unique coordinate. Your coordinate will be different than mine, okay, because it's associated with your email address. So did you get as far as this page, Raymond, and any other newbies? So I'm talking to all the newbies here. Do you have a mic, Raymond? Because you and I can talk. Okay, I'm watching you online. Well, how about doing it yourself, or do you not want to do that?
Oh, wait.
Why don't you set yourself up? Yeah, there you go. Oop, I thought I heard you.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
Okay,
Um,
click that link. Click the link, HTTP link, and tell me what happens. See, that's the link you would get in an email. It's the exact same link. That's what I clicked, the link from the email. And you should see this page. So let's see if we can get all the newbies to this page. The old bees already know what to do, but let me get you to this page.
okay, I found it. I'm logging in now with my web address.
With your, exactly. Okay, so you do that. I'm doing the same thing, and hopefully all the other newbies, if there's anybody that's not following this, let me know. Put it in the chat box or, okay. So then you should now be seeing this page, except you'll have a different coordinate here. Correct?
Yes, I see tasking in Q coordinate 703233 feet.
Okay, so that's your personal coordinate for your personal feedback target. Nobody else here will get that target.
Okay,
So
understood.
that's your target. And so that is your target reference number or coordinate.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the next thing you do is you do your remote viewing session. Okay. Do you have any remote viewing experience?
Mostly failures.
Okay, but you know, earlier when I was talking about ARV, I talked about the RV part where you get quiet and you know you take what you get from your sub and AOLs and that sort of thing. But I think you're past that then. If you had failures, it meant you've done it.
Yes.
Now you want to start getting some successes, and I would suggest to you that when you do this one, definitely cool down. Take some moments to get quiet, get rid of your day-to-day stuff. It's like a mini meditation, and be real clear about your intention to get really good match with the feedback target, and expect it this time because you're now using this new protocol. You know, you've got kind of a somewhat new mindset. Give yourself all kinds of good feeling. It's not the words, it's the feeling about that you want to transmit down to your subs. So do that and then do a session and we'll see what happens.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll send you the link for the feedback after it comes tomorrow. But what you do after you do your remote viewing session is you come back to this page, and I don't know if you noticed, left this page and came back to it. You'll have the same coordinate if you were to leave it. Most people just leave it on their screen, do their remote viewing session, but some people just want the number now and they'll do the session, you know, some other time, tonight. And you will always get this session with that link, the same link I gave you.
Okay.
So don't lose this though, because you do need that link. And then you come here and browse. And I'm not going to do a session, so I just have a dummy transcript I put up. So obviously, see, your transcript will become part of the record. You'll be able to get access to it and everything associated with it. And then you click submit. Now, if I were to click submit now, and I don't want to do it because I don't want you to see other images anymore. The feedback screen would come up with the two pictures, like the one I showed earlier, but it would be the two possible targets for you. And then you would act as your own judge unless you want to give this to somebody else, which indeed you could do. Have you been doing self-judging or independent judging?
I guess you would just call it independent. I've tried finding some things online and trying to do some personal experimentation. And
Okay. I think you have not done any judging within this protocol. So let me tell you what's going to happen. You do your remote viewing sessions, you get kind of into this deepish meditative listening, witnessing state. You're witnessing what comes up from your subconscious. You do your transcript. You then come back here. When you click this submit button, up will come your first of two possible targets. Below that will be the second of two possible targets. And below that, you'll be able to see them both. And you'll have a screen which will let you put the confidence rankings in there. So you're now going to do the judging. So you'll be back into an intellectual state. When you submit that, be ready to do the judging. That's all I'm telling you.
okay, thank you.
Okay? Now, if you have any questions about that screen and everything, you've got my email address now, so you can email me about them, okay?
All right, thank you.
You're brand new. Very good. So that's it. Yeah, right. I don't want you to see my pictures. So that's it. This would come in usually during email. You're doing it. You will be the first ones, those of you that send me an email, to participate in this experiment with Julia. She's really the one doing it. I'm just data keeping. Now, okay. Let's close now. This idea about you creating your precognition, and when I say you, I mean this deep you, the you that takes psi for granted, the you down there that in fact you'll be building and have been. You got this far, so you already have the beginning of one. I mean, you believe in precognition. That already makes you pretty unusual. And you're doing it on purpose. So this idea of ARV beginning with the feedback session, I think you now understand it, and causing information, the retrocausality part of it. So you get that. And that's what you're doing, both. You're about to do your remote viewing sessions now, and what you're building is, and you've been building this since you were born, is a communication channel between your conscious mind and, I sometimes like to call it the submerged conscious mind, the subconscious mind. That is the interface between your conscious mind, which really, when you think about it, is only in the now. The conscious mind, where you really know you are aware of being conscious, is in the now moment. Everything else is submerged. So your memories are all submerged, as are your future memories, which is what ARV is all about, getting in touch with your future memory of your target. Okay. Thank you, all of you. I wish healthy, wealthy, and a lot of wisdom. And with that, I will ask for any final questions or comments. Yeah. Yes. And I, as you probably gathered, do really like to do this, love to do this work, just because it's so fascinating, both as a scientist and just as a person. That time is so different than we used to think of it as. And I can't do it without you, so I thank you back. Okay, so with that, I will end this meeting, and all of you do keep precogging.